Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a stack of information, all focused on boosting your immunity. Our source material is Boosting Your Immunity for Dummies by Wendy Warner, and our mission really is simple.
Yeah.
We want to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the practical tips you can actually use to understand and maybe strengthen your immune system.
Right, make it actionable.
Exactly. We'll touch on everything from basic biology to diet, lifestyle, even dealing with immune challenges.
It's a big topic. Lots to cover.
Definitely. Get ready for some, I think, surprising facts and insights that really cut through the noise.
It truly is a complex system, the immune system.
Yeah.
And thinking about it as having layers of defense is, well, it's really helpful.
Layers? You mean like different lines of defense ready to jump in?
Exactly.
Yep.
First, there's an initial sort of non-specific response. That's your body's immediate alarm system reacting broadly to anything foreign. But then, if that's not enough, there's a more specific induced response.
Yeah.
That involves a whole team of highly specialized cells.
Okay, that specific response, that sounds like where the real strategy comes in. Who are the key players on that team?
Oh, it's quite the cast. You've got, for instance, dendritic cells and macrophages. They move in to literally eat up pathogens. Think of them as the first responders, the cleanup crew.
Eating them up, okay.
Yeah, and then you also have polymorphonucleocytes, or PMNs. They also engulf and break down invaders. Similar job.
So those are the general engulfers.
Yeah.
What about the more specific threats, like viruses, or maybe even the body's own cells going rogue, like cancer cells?
Ah, right.
Yeah.
That's often the specialized job of what we call killer T cells.
Killer T cells.
And the way the system activates these specific fighters is pretty clever. It's called antigen presentation.
Okay.
Basically, those cleanup cells, like the macrophages, they show little pieces of the invader, the antigens, to other immune cells.
Like showing a mugshot.
Exactly. And this stimulates helper T cells and cytolytic T cells to really ramp up the fight.
And you mentioned B cells earlier. They're busy doing something else.
Yes, B cells are crucial. They're the ones making the antibodies we hear so much about.
Right, antibodies. And what's their specific role? What's their superpower in this battle?
Antibodies are like intelligent markers. They bind onto the invader, tagging it, so other immune cells know exactly who to target.
Oh, okay.
They can also bind particles together, kind of like corralling the invaders, making them easier for other cells to clear out.
It's like a microscopic tracking and clumping system. And how long does this whole strategic specific response usually take from the moment the body sees something new?
Well, this entire specific response, from that first encounter to full antibody production and the coordinated cell attack,
Yeah.
it usually takes about 4 to 5 days.
4 to 5 days.
Yeah. And this is actually a really interesting takeaway, you know, because it explains why typical viral infections, assuming your immune system is working well, often take about a week to resolve. Your body just needs that time to build this specific targeted defense.
That timing connection is fascinating. It makes you appreciate what your body's doing those first few days. You just feel run down.
Exactly. Now, moving beyond this internal cellular army, one point that really stood out in the source material was the importance of, well, bacteria.
Bacteria, that seems counterintuitive when we're talking about fighting invaders, doesn't it?
It absolutely sounds backward at first glance, yeah. But having plenty of normal, healthy bacteria, your microbiome in and on your body, is critically important for robust immune function. They're not invaders, they're allies.
Allies. Okay. And the book highlights that this relationship starts incredibly early, right?
It does. Early exposure is key. For example, it mentions that babies born by C-section tend to develop a different profile of initial gut bacteria compared to those born vaginally.
Because they miss out on that exposure in the birth canal.
Precisely. Different bacteria pathways from the start.
And there's also that idea that the hygiene hypothesis, that being too clean might hinder this process.
Exactly. The book points out that kids raised in environments sometimes described as too clean seem to have higher rates of asthma and allergies.
Interesting.
The thinking is that their immune systems just aren't exposed to enough normal bacteria early on to properly learn what's a real threat and what's harmless. Calibration, essentially.
So how can you actively support these beneficial bacterial populations? What does the book suggest?
Several ways. You could consider taking a supplement, specifically probiotics. We'll touch on those again later.
Okay.
Eating naturally fermented foods is another excellent way. Things like yogurt with live cultures, real sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir.
Good stuff.
And critically, avoiding the overuse of antibacterial soaps or unnecessary antibiotics.
Because they're indiscriminate.
Yeah, they can wipe out the good bacteria right along with the bad ones. It disrupts the balance.
Okay, so we've got the complex internal defense system supported by our helpful bacteria allies. Now let's talk about something many people reach for, getting an extra kick from supplements and herbs. What's the core message here?
The key takeaway, really, is that supplements and herbs are meant to support your nutrition and overall health. They aren't meant to replace a healthy diet.
So a support system, not the foundation itself.
Exactly. Think of them as helping fill potential gaps or providing targeted support.
And quality seems absolutely paramount, according to the book.
Absolutely. It strongly emphasizes choosing high-quality, integrity-made products. Look for organic ingredients when possible. Check that they're screened for contaminants like heavy metals or pesticides.
Right.
And always, always check those expiration dates. The source suggests finding these through reliable places, natural health stores, healthcare providers, or specific reputable online sources mentioned, like Vitacost or Health Concerns.
Okay, let's hit some specific supplements the book highlights. Fish oil is right up front.
Yeah, fish oil is really important. It provides essential omega-3 fatty acids, which your body actually can't make itself.
Ah, so you have to get it from diet or supplements.
Correct. You find these omega-3s in things like grass-fed meat, wild-caught fish, organic eggs. But supplementing is strongly recommended for pretty much everyone, especially if your diet isn't rich in these sources or isn't primarily organic.
Makes sense. The book also lists magnesium and probiotics, reinforcing what we discussed about bacteria, but it doesn't really dive into specifics about magnesium's immune role in the excerpts we looked at.
Correct. They're listed but not detailed in these sections. Vitamin C is another key one mentioned.
And like omega-3s, our body doesn't manufacture vitamin C either.
Right. You need to get it from food, think berries, citrus fruits, green vegetables. Supplementation is suggested if you find yourself frequently getting colds or infections, if you heal slowly, bruise easily, have bleeding gums, feel generally run down or under chronic stress, or, simply don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Things like emergency are mentioned as common examples people might know.
Exactly.
Vitamin D3 is also highlighted, with a strong link mentioned to infection severity.
Yes. Vitamin D3 deficiency is clearly linked to getting more severe infections, or getting them more often. The recommendation is actually to get your blood levels checked. There's a specific test, the 25-hydroxyvitamin D test.
Okay.
And then work with a practitioner to find your optimal daily dose. Typically, it's suggested somewhere in the range of 3,000 to 5,000 IUs daily for maintenance.
Is there a specific tip for when you feel like you're starting to get sick? Like, can you ramp it up?
Interestingly, yes.
Yeah.
The book suggests that if you feel exposed to illness or you feel like you're coming down with something, you could temporarily increase your vitamin D3 intake to 10,000 IUs daily for up to about a week.
Wow. Okay.
The idea is it helps rev up the immune system.
Hmm.
But there's a caution. If you do this often, you should definitely check your blood levels periodically to make sure you stay within a safe range. The book notes the safe upper limit for blood levels is around 100.
Good practical advice there. Zinc is the last supplement specifically called out in this section.
Right. Zinc deficiency is also linked to increased infection severity and incidence, similar to vitamin D. And supplementation with zinc has actually been shown in studies to decrease the duration and severity of cold symptoms.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and even reduce the need for antibiotics in some cases.
Okay, so beyond those supplements, the source gets into medicinal herbs. Astragalus, for instance, what's the story there?
Astragalus has a long, long history in Chinese medicine. Its roots are harvested, and it's recognized for having antioxidant benefits, and importantly, for stimulating the immune system. It's even said to help infuse the body with energy and healing potential.
But quality control is mentioned again.
Yes, particularly around potential heavy metal contamination. Finding a reputable source, like Health Concerns, which is mentioned again, is important.
Echinacea is one many people probably know and use, right?
Absolutely. Very popular. The book points out that the most potent form is usually considered Echinacea purpurea. You can use either the above-ground parts or the roots, fresh or dried.
And the key is timing.
Timing is crucial here. Take it at the very first sign of a cold or flu. The sooner you start, the better the potential effect.
Is there a catch with echinacea, though? Like, can you take it all the time?
Yeah, there's a really important detail mentioned.
Hmm.
You shouldn't take it continuously for more than about 3 weeks at a time.
Ah.
You need to cycle off it for a week or maybe 2. Otherwise, its effectiveness seems to diminish. Also, higher doses are often needed to see effect.
And there's a quality check you can do.
Kind of, yeah. A quality tincture made from the root should actually cause a characteristic tingling sensation in your mouth. That tingle is often seen as a sign it's a potent preparation.
Interesting. Elderberry is listed but without much detail. What about ginseng?
Ginseng is mentioned, but the book notes that often the dose you find in typical supplement form is too low to be truly effective for immune support.
Okay.
And just like echinacea, it needs to be cycled. Maximum 3 weeks on, then take about a week off. And you should avoid taking high doses long term.
Got it. The source also lists a whole range of other herbs like aloe vera, cat's claw, hyssop, which it notes is helpful as an expectorant for mucus licorice root, nettle, and St. John's wort.
Yep, they're included in the list of herbs that can be supportive for various aspects of health, potentially including immune function.
And one other specific herb mentioned for cold and flu season is Andrographis paniculata. That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's mentioned as being quite effective.
Does that one also need to be started right at the very first symptom, like echinacea?
No, that's where Andrographis is different according to the book. It states it can still work even if you don't start it at the absolute first sniffle.
Okay, that's useful.
Though it might take about 36 to 48 hours to really start kicking in. And interestingly, you should actually keep taking it for a day or two after your symptoms stop.
Good to know. Any cautions with that one?
Yes, a couple of important ones. It should be avoided during pregnancy and used cautiously if you're on blood thinners like Coumadin. It might also potentially lower blood pressure.
Okay, really helpful specifics there. That's a great overview of the supplement and herb toolkit. Now let's pivot to something we all engage with multiple times a day. Fueling your immunity with nutrition. The book talks a lot about superfoods.
Right. The idea of superfoods is really about nutrient density, getting a maximum amount of vitamins, minerals, and beneficial compounds with relatively few calories.
And what are the main benefits of prioritizing these types of foods?
Well, beyond just getting those essential nutrients without excess calories or sugar, you get these natural disease-fighting compounds like flavonoids. These can help reduce blood pressure, lower inflammation, stimulate antioxidant activity in the body.
So, multiple benefits.
Definitely. Plus, boosting your fiber intake with these foods like almonds, avocados, broccoli are given as examples, can greatly improve digestive health, which we know is linked to immunity.
Berries get a specific gold star mention, don't they?
They absolutely do. Blueberries, cranberries, raspberries, blackberries, cherries, strawberries. The book calls them out specifically. They're packed with anthocyanins, those vibrant, colorful pigments.
Right.
And they are just flooded with antioxidants, plus vitamins, minerals, and fiber, while being relatively low in natural sugars compared to other fruits.
And linked to some pretty impressive health outcomes.
Yeah, the book links them to potentially suppressing cancers and colds, reducing blood pressure, and helping prevent conditions like strokes, arthritis, and osteoporosis. It's quite a list.
And crucially, for berries and many other fruits listed like apples, oranges, grapes, cherries, buying organic is specifically recommended. Why is that?
To reduce pesticide exposure. Fruits where you often eat the skin or that tend to be heavily treated are highlighted as being particularly important to buy organic if possible.
Makes sense. Nuts and seeds are another powerful category mentioned.
Oh yeah, fantastic. They're great for balancing blood sugar, make a really satisfying snack. They provide healthy oils and vitamin E.
And vitamin E is linked to.
Reducing risk for things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, cognitive decline, inflammation, and even slowing down aspects of aging. They're just little nutrient powerhouses.
And they can help with weight management. That seems counterintuitive sometimes.
Right, because they're calorie dense. But the book mentions studies suggesting people who include reasonable amounts of nuts in their diet actually tend to lose more weight, possibly due to satiety and nutrient effects.
Portion size is key, though, I imagine.
Absolutely. A simple tip from the book for portion size is that a serving generally fits into your closed fist. Think almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, pecans, Brazil nuts, pistachios. Lots of great options.
And even our spice rack holds immune boosters. Little things we sprinkle on food.
Definitely. Take black pepper, contains piperine. This compound has antioxidant, antibacterial, and even anti-cancer properties, and it might help reduce inflammation in conditions like arthritis.
Any downside?
Well, the book does note it can sometimes be a bit irritating to the gut lining for some people.
Okay. Turmeric is incredibly popular these days for inflammation.
And for very good reason. Its active compound, curcumin, is highlighted for its really diverse antioxidant power. The book suggests it might protect and heal virtually every organ.
Wow.
It shows significant promise in preventing and helping manage a huge range of conditions: cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, eye diseases, depression, skin problems. It's quite remarkable.
And maybe even weight gain.
Some studies suggest it might help prevent weight gain, yes.
Parsley, usually just seen as a garnish. More to it than that.
Much, much more.
Hmm.
It contains a compound called apigenin, which actually helps other antioxidants work more effectively.
Oh, interesting.
It's also noted as being a mild diuretic, potentially helping reduce high blood pressure.
Mm.
And it's linked to fighting cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. So yeah, definitely not just decoration.
And thyme. What's its benefit?
Thyme contains thymol, which is a healing oil known for its antiseptic properties. The book lists it as being good for calming coughs and helping prevent teeth decay or infection.
So that's a good look at what to focus on. But the book also has a pretty firm stance on certain foods to avoid altogether. Uses strong language.
It does. The phrasing is quite direct, stating these foods cause such havoc. The reasoning given is that your body doesn't really recognize them as food, struggles to process them, and this leads to inflammation and potentially long-term damage.
Okay, so what are these absolute no-goes, according to the source?
The big ones listed are artificial sweeteners, things like acesulfame K, aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, also food additives, cornstarch, and high fructose corn syrup.
And what about other sugars? Are they all off limits?
The book advises caution with all other sugars, but makes exceptions for raw honey, pure maple syrup, dark chocolate, and cocoa powder, but only in moderation.
Right.
Also firmly on the avoid list are most packaged processed foods, which usually contain additives and often gluten, and importantly, industrial and seed oils.
Why are those industrial and seed oils specifically problematic? Things like corn oil, soybean oil.
According to the book, they're very prone to turning rancid, which creates harmful compounds, and they actively create inflammation in the body. Examples given to avoid are corn, safflower, sunflower, and soybean oils.
And they mess with the omega balance.
Exactly. They're also notably high in omega-6 fatty acids, which can compete with those beneficial omega-3s we talked about earlier from fish oil. You want a good ratio, and these oils skew it the wrong way.
Protein is another fundamental part of the diet. What does the source emphasize about protein sources? Is it just about getting enough?
Quality is absolutely key, especially for animal protein. The book really distinguishes between factory-farmed options and meat from animals that were humanely and sustainably raised.
And the recommendation is?
That's choice. Organic, pasture-raised, antibiotic-free sources whenever possible. If you can't always access that, focusing on the leanest cuts, removing visible skin and fat, and draining off fat after cooking are suggested ways to mitigate some potential downsides. The book even mentions looking for online sources for grass-fed or organic meat.
Okay. And for people leaning more towards plant-based protein?
Organic, non-GMO, plant-based foods are recommended. Beans are highlighted, particularly lentils, black beans, pinto beans, and red beans, as having a lower impact on blood sugar compared to some others.
And there's a tip for preparing them.
Yes, a practical tip. Always rinse canned beans well. And if using dried beans, soak them for a good long time, 12 hours or more, to help remove starches and salt. And importantly, make them less likely to cause gas.
Are there any beans or legumes to be cautious about, according to the book?
Yes, interestingly, it lists several beans and legumes to generally avoid unless you are a strict vegetarian. This is due to higher levels of compounds, sometimes called anti-nutrients, that can interfere with digestion or nutrient absorption for some people.
Which ones are on that list?
The list includes black beans, despite being mentioned earlier as lower impact on blood sugar. Interesting nuance there. Broad beans, garbanzo beans or chickpeas, lima beans, mung beans, navy beans, peanuts and peanut butter, peas, and soybeans.
That's quite a few common ones. Any exceptions?
Yes, it makes an exception for snow peas, sugar snap peas, and green beans. The reasoning given is that they're considered more pod than pea or bean, and seem to be less problematic in terms of these anti-nutrients.
That's a lot of specific food guidance. The book also offers some helpful portion size visuals. You mentioned the fist for nuts.
It gives some great simple guidelines. For meat or fish, think the size and thickness of your palm, roughly 3 to 4 ounces for women, maybe 5-6 ounces for men.
Okay.
If you're having deli meats, stack them up to about the thickness of your palm. Nuts and seeds, as we said, fit into a closed fist. For healthy oils like olive oil, picture about the size of your thumb. And for something like organic coconut flakes, maybe what fits in your open hand. These visuals can be really helpful for keeping portions in check without weighing everything.
So if we're trying to build an immune-boosting plate based on all this, what's the simple formula?
Pair your quality protein source with lots and lots of vegetables. Make vegetables the star, the bulk of your plate.
Simple enough. And for those inevitable sweet cravings, we all get them.
The book has some very practical, almost behavioral advice here. The easiest way to manage sweets at home is simply Don't bring them into the house in the first place.
Out of sight, out of mind, essentially.
Pretty much. If they're not there, you can't eat them impulsively. Consider making treats an out-of-the-house event. Go out for ice cream occasionally, rather than keeping tubs in the freezer.
At away from home.
The advice is not to get crazy or overly restrictive about it, especially with kids. Focus on teaching good choices and habits at home. The idea is that over time, family members will start to connect how certain foods, especially sugary ones, make them feel.
And if you are going to have sweets.
Aim for real sweets. Things made with more natural ingredients rather than those full of chemicals, artificial sweeteners, or what the book calls Frankensweets. And the general principle holds. The more refined the sugar, generally the worse it is for your system.
Nutrition is clearly a massive cornerstone, but the book also stresses that lifestyle factors play a huge role in immunity. Sleep, for instance, gets called imperative.
Not just important, yet imperative. Lack of sleep directly lowers your white blood cell count, those critical infection fighters.
Wow, a direct link.
Absolutely. Other outcomes linked in the book to insufficient sleep include a doubled risk of breast cancer, specifically related to consistently going to bed, too late weight gain, and prolonged high cortisol levels, which can contribute to feelings of panic and depression.
And you can't just catch up on the weekend.
The book highlights that sleep deprivation is cumulative. You don't just magically adapt to less sleep, you just get progressively more tired, more stressed, and less healthy. Sleep debt is real, and it hits your immune system directly.
Any practical tips for better sleep mentioned?
Limiting caffeine is a big one, remembering it takes about 3 to 5 hours for just half the caffeine you consume to clear your system. And limiting alcohol before bed, while it might make you feel sleepy initially, it actually reduces the quality of your deep and REM sleep.
Okay. What about sunshine? That's also called imperative. Seems counterintuitive with skin cancer fears.
It's called absolutely crucial for health. Early morning sun exposure, in particular, helps activate hormones and sets your body's natural biological rhythms, your circadian clock.
And the vitamin D connection is key.
Essential for vitamin D production, which we already talked about being integral for T-cell function, those specialized immune cells. But sunshine does more. It's linked to reducing the risk of many cancers, colds, and the flu. It promotes better sleep, helps with seasonal affective disorder, SAD, strengthens bones by aiding calcium absorption, may reduce stroke risk, and can even lower blood pressure.
So the body genuinely needs sunlight. How does the book address the skin cancer concern?
It acknowledges the concern, but makes the point that you can't avoid sun completely if you want optimal health. It raises questions about conventional sunscreens, noting that while they prevent sunburn, there isn't necessarily clear evidence they reduce overall skin cancer risk.
And some chemicals might be problematic.
It suggests some of the chemicals absorbed through the skin might actually carry their own risks, potentially even increasing cancer risk in some cases. Avoiding sprays and mists is suggested because of inhalation risk. And looking at natural mineral-based brands with good ratings, like those reviewed by the Environmental Working Group, EWG, is recommended.
Interesting point about regular versus intermittent exposure.
Yes, an interesting perspective offered is that regular, moderate sun exposure might actually be somewhat protective against certain skin cancers, whereas it's the intermittent, intense exposure, like getting severe sunburns on vacation, that significantly increases the risk.
And the amount needed varies.
Definitely. Depends on your skin darkness, where you live, latitude, time of year, and time of day.
Hydration is another basic but often overlooked factor. What's the key takeaway there?
Crucial. The book points out something fascinating. People often confuse thirst signals with hunger cues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And by the time your brain actually sends a clear thirst signal, you're likely already close to 2% dehydrated. Your kidneys actually start conserving water before you even feel thirsty.
So don't wait until you're thirsty.
Exactly. At that point, you need water, and you need it faster than if you'd been sipping consistently throughout the day. Staying well hydrated helps literally all your body's systems, including the immune system, function properly.
Stress management seems particularly tied to immune function in the book's discussion. How so?
It is. Stress hormones, especially prolonged high levels of cortisol, can actually overstimulate the immune system in unhelpful ways. For individuals who might be genetically predisposed, this can increase the production of autoantibodies, where the immune system mistakenly starts targeting the body's own tissues.
So stress can directly contribute to autoimmune issues.
It's presented as a significant contributing factor. The book emphasizes that effectively controlling stress is linked to seeing improvement in existing autoimmune conditions.
And there's a very specific, striking example given too about short-term emotions.
Yes, It notes that even brief periods of negative emotional states, like just 5 minutes of intense anger or frustration, can directly decrease levels of IgA in your saliva,
IgA being.
a key antibody in your mucous membranes, mouth, nose, gut, providing a really important first line of defense against pathogens. And that dip in IgA from just 5 minutes of anger can apparently last for up to 6 hours.
Wow. That really underscores the direct physiological impact. What methods for managing stress are suggested?
Things like regular meditation, yoga practice, specific techniques like heart math that focus on heart rate variability, and various forms of breathwork exercises are all mentioned as helpful strategies.
Detoxification is mentioned as well. What does the book mean by that in this context? Is it about juice cleanses?
Not necessarily extreme cleanses. It's more referring to supporting the body's natural processes for breaking down and eliminating harmful substances, stuff from the environment, metabolic byproducts, etc. The liver, kidneys, skin, lungs are all involved.
So supporting what the body already does.
Exactly. The book suggests you can help these processes work more optimally. The potential pros of doing a structured period of detoxification, maybe focusing on clean eating and specific supportive nutrients, include giving your systems a bit of a reset, which can improve immune function, helping you refocus on healthy eating habits, and maybe getting control over not-so-great habits like excessive caffeine or alcohol.
Are there potential downsides mentioned?
Yes, it acknowledges it requires planning and discipline. You might also experience temporary side effects like fatigue or some digestive upset as your body adjusts. And the book again lists those specific foods to strictly avoid during a dedicated detox period, reiterating the earlier list. Artificial sweeteners, often soy, processed items, sugars, and those industrial seed oils.
Okay. Finally, in this lifestyle section, chiropractic care is discussed. How does that fit in?
Chiropractic care is presented as a non-invasive, holistic approach that's been around for over a century. It focuses on the relationship between the alignment of the spine and the function of the nervous system, which in turn influences signals between the brain and all the organs and systems, including the immune system.
And potential benefits related to immunity.
Benefits mentioned include stress relief, potential improvements in immunity,
Yeah.
the idea being that optimizing nerve function optimizes overall body function and generally improving nervous system function. The book briefly references an older study by Dr. Windsor as early work investigating a potential link between spinal health and organ function, though that's historical context.
It's truly eye-opening how interconnected all these seemingly unrelated daily factors, sleep, sun, stress, even spinal alignment, are presented as being with our immune health. Speaking of impact, the book also delves into how immune system issues manifest in specific health challenges.
Right. It covers a range of conditions where the immune system is either overreacting, underreacting, or reacting inappropriately, like allergies, for instance.
Which are basically the immune system mounting an attack against something harmless.
Right.
Pollen, dust mites, certain foods.
Exactly. An inappropriate response.
Yeah.
And the immediate best step for known allergies is often avoidance, if possible.
What about treatments mentioned?
Conventional treatments discussed include medications like cromolyn sodium, used preventatively before symptoms start, nasal atropine for really severe runny nose, but it has potential contraindications, and immunotherapy, or allergy shots.
The allergy shots can work well.
They can be quite successful, yeah. But it's a significant commitment, typically requiring regular shots for 3 to 5 years. And there's always a small risk of severe allergic reactions to the shots themselves.
What about natural approaches for allergies?
Nasal irrigation is highly recommended. Using a neti pot with filtered water is emphasized.
Why filtered?
To avoid introducing any potential contaminants from tap water directly into the sinuses. It's seen as a very effective way to physically wash allergens out of the nasal passages. The book prefers neti pots over squeeze bottles, suggesting they might be more effective.
Okay. The book also discusses something commonly known as leaky gut syndrome, or food sensitivities, connecting it to immunity. How does that work?
Yeah, leaky gut is often used as a descriptive term for issues related to delayed food reactions or sensitivities. The core idea is damage to the lining of the intestines.
What causes that damage?
It can be caused by chronic inflammation, long-term use of things like antibiotics or steroid medications, or even high levels of stress hormones. This damage can create tiny gaps, sometimes called gap junctions, between the cells that make up the gut lining.
So the barrier breaks down a bit, and then what happens?
Undigested food particles, bacterial fragments, toxins. Things that should normally stay inside the gut can pass between these cells and get into the bloodstream or the tissue just beneath the lining.
And the immune system reacts.
Exactly. There's a huge amount of immune tissue right there in the gut called Geltal gut-associated lymphoid tissue. It recognizes these leaked particles as foreign invaders and mounts an immune response, often creating Ig antibodies against specific foods.
What are the common signs someone might be dealing with this?
Symptoms can be quite varied, and often digestive things like bloating, gas, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, or maybe an urgent need to go with poorly formed stools. Brain fog, fatigue, skin issues, joint pain are sometimes linked too.
And standard tests might miss it.
Interestingly, yes, standard tests like a colonoscopy might look completely normal, or perhaps show only mild, non-specific inflammation. That's because the issue isn't necessarily a visible structural problem like an ulcer, but more a functional one involving the integrity of the lining and the immune response happening there.
So how is it typically diagnosed and treated according to the book?
Diagnosis often involves either a strict food elimination diet, where you remove common trigger foods for several weeks and then carefully reintroduce them one by one to pinpoint reactions,
Or testing.
or blood testing, specifically for those IgG antibodies to a panel of different foods. Treatment then involves strictly avoiding the identified problem foods for a period, typically suggested as 4-6 months, while also actively working to heal the gut lining itself.
Healing the lining how?
Often with targeted support using specific herbs, vitamins like L-glutamine, and nutrition counseling to ensure adequate nutrients for repair. Common food offenders frequently identified in this context include gluten, corn, soy, dairy, sometimes most nuts, oranges, and generally processed foods.
Okay, that makes sense. Autoimmune disorders are another major category where the immune system is involved, but here it's mistakenly attacking the body's own tissues.
Exactly. The immune system loses its ability to distinguish self from non-self and starts making antibodies against the body's own cells or tissues. These are called autoantibodies. There are over 80 different recognized autoimmune conditions.
And the goal isn't necessarily a cure.
The book stresses that while a cure might not be realistic for many autoimmune conditions, the key is modifying the underlying inflammatory process involved. Slowing down or halting the tissue damage is the primary aim.
And the exact cause is complex, but there are factors that seem to contribute significantly.
Yes. While the ultimate trigger is often unclear, the book points to evidence suggesting environmental toxins can play a role. Things like heavy metals mercury mentioned specifically, found in some large predatory fish and older dental amalgams and PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, are linked to potentially stimulating T cells and the production of various autoantibodies, especially in people with a genetic predisposition. The idea is these toxins might damage cells or alter proteins, making them look foreign to the immune system.
The book outlines a specific inflammation pathway involved in these conditions. Can you walk us through that?
It describes how various triggers can activate a key cellular pathway involving something called NF-kappa B, NFKB. This activation leads to the production of inflammatory mediators, like prostaglandins and leukotrienes.
Okay.
These, in turn, trigger the release of potent inflammatory signaling molecules called cytokines, things like TNF-alpha and various interleukins. These cytokines drive widespread inflammation and can directly cause tissue damage throughout the body.
And these inflammatory cytokines can even affect the brain. That's surprising.
Yes, they can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and cause inflammation in the brain. The book mentions that some researchers are starting to question if conditions we traditionally haven't thought of as autoimmune, like Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, might actually have a significant autoimmune or inflammatory component driving them.
Wow. And the problem in autoimmunity is that this damaging process can just keep going.
Exactly. Unlike fighting off a finite infection where the invader is eventually cleared, in autoimmunity, the target, the body's own cells, is always present. So the damage can continue indefinitely unless the underlying process is modulated.
Besides environmental toxins, what other factors are mentioned as influencing autoimmunity?
Imbalances in hormone ratios, particularly between estrogens and androgens, are noted as potential factors. Challenges with liver function are also highlighted as significant.
Why the liver specifically?
Because the liver is absolutely key in processing and detoxifying not just environmental toxins, but also hormones and medications. If the liver isn't functioning optimally, these substances can build up or be improperly metabolized, potentially contributing to immune dysregulation. Supporting liver health through diet, ensuring adequate B vitamins, vitamin A, flavonoids, phospholipids, and specific amino acids like glutamine and methionine is mentioned as important.
How are these conditions typically diagnosed?
Diagnosis usually relies on a combination of things: the patient's clinical history, their symptoms, how they developed, family history, and specific laboratory tests. Common blood tests mentioned include ANA, anti-nuclear antibody, which isn't specific to one disease but can be positive in several conditions like lupus or scleroderma. Rheumatoid factor is another antibody test more specific for rheumatoid arthritis. And HLA typing looks for specific genetic markers, like HLA-B27, which is strongly linked to conditions like ankylosing spondylitis and Reiter syndrome.
What does a holistic approach to treating or managing autoimmune conditions involve, according to the book? What's the foundation?
The foundation is really focused on two main things: removing sources of inflammation and boosting or modulating the immune response, appropriately calming it down where it's overactive, supporting it where needed.
So going back to basics.
Exactly. This includes the fundamental lifestyle factors we already discussed: rigorous stress management to reduce that cortisol overstimulation, removing inflammatory foods, often identified through an elimination diet, ensuring adequate nutrients specific to the affected tissues, like thyroid-specific nutrients if Hashimoto's is involved, and overall immune modulation support.
Are specific supplements mentioned for this anti-inflammatory goal?
Yes, specific anti-inflammatory supplements highlighted include fish oil, those omega-3s again, curcumin from turmeric, rosemary, and hops. Ashwagandha is also specifically noted as being potentially helpful for autoimmune thyroiditis, or Hashimoto's.
So addressing these fundamental areas, stress, diet, targeted supplements, can really make a difference in the long run.
The book strongly suggests that consistently managing stress, cleaning up the diet, and using appropriate supplemental support, especially if you address these issues early on, can significantly help manage symptoms, potentially avoid or slow down significant organ damage, and maybe even prevent the development of additional autoimmune conditions down the line. Focusing on helping the immune system function correctly, rather than just suppressing it broadly, is presented as key.
Okay, shifting gears entirely now, the book also touches briefly on immunodeficiency disorders. This is the opposite problem, right? When the immune system isn't working strongly enough.
Exactly. It's when the immune system or parts of it are weakened or slowed down. These conditions can be inherited, meaning they're genetic and present at birth, or diagnosed later in childhood, or they can be acquired later in life due to various factors like infections, HIV is a major example, medications, or malnutrition.
What kinds of inherited types are mentioned?
The book mentions categories like B-cell immunodeficiency syndromes. A specific example given is common variable immunodeficiency, or CVID. This is characterized by the body's inability to produce sufficient antibodies to fight off bacterial and sometimes viral infections effectively.
So people get sick a lot.
Yes, leading to frequent and often severe infections, particularly in lungs, pneumonia, sinuses, ears, and sometimes the gastrointestinal tract. People with CVID are also noted to be at higher risk for developing other conditions like eczema, certain types of lymphomas, and leukemias.
Are there also issues mentioned with those engulfing immune cells we talked about earlier?
Yes, problems with phagocytosis are mentioned. An example given is chronic granulomatous disease, CGD. In this condition, the phagocytic cells, like neutrophils and macrophages, can actually ingest bacteria or fungi, but they lack the ability to produce the necessary chemicals, like reactive oxygen species, to actually kill the invaders inside them.
So the invaders survive inside the immune cells.
Right, which leads to severe recurring infections often caused by normally less harmful organisms. People with CGD often develop enlarged lymph nodes, granulomas, collections of immune cells trying to wall off infection, and frequent pneumonia. Many forms of CGD are X-linked, meaning they primarily affect boys.
How are these types of serious immunodeficiency conditions diagnosed and treated?
Accurate diagnosis is absolutely crucial and usually involves specialized blood tests looking at immune cell counts and function. Diagnosis is often prompted by a history of unusually severe, persistent, or recurrent infections, or sometimes by a family history of similar issues. Genetic counseling can help families understand the risks.
Can they test before birth?
In some cases, yes. Certain conditions can be tested for during pregnancy, using samples from blood, amniotic fluid, or placental cells, chorionic villus sampling. Otherwise, testing usually happens when a baby or child starts showing signs of immune problems.
For treatment, even with these serious compromised systems, does the book still emphasize the basics?
Yes, it reiterates that fundamental support still matters. Good nutrition and stress management are highlighted as basic ways to optimize whatever immune function is still present. Obviously, they won't fix non-functioning cells, but they can help support the overall health and resilience of the individual and the cells that are working.
What about more specific medical treatments?
More specific treatments mentioned include IVG, that's intravenous immunoglobulin therapy. This involves regular infusions of antibodies collected from the plasma of thousands of healthy blood donors.
To provide the missing antibodies.
Exactly. For people with antibody deficiencies like CVD, IVD can be truly life-saving, helping prevent severe infections. It's also sometimes used for certain autoimmune conditions, although the exact mechanism of how it helps there isn't fully understood. It can be expensive and does carry potential side effects like headache, fever, or allergic reactions.
And bone marrow transplant is also a treatment option for some.
Yes, because bone marrow is the factory where most immune cells are produced. Transplanting healthy bone marrow, or stem cells, from a compatible donor is a potential cure for many primary immunodeficiency disorders, as well as certain cancers like leukemia.
How does that work?
The goal is for the healthy donor marrow to engraft in the recipient's bones and start producing a normal, functioning immune system. Success rates depend heavily on finding a good donor match. A sibling is often the best chance, but matched unrelated donors can also be found through registries.
Is pretreatment always needed?
Usually, yes, especially for cancer. The recipient's own bone marrow often needs to be destroyed first, using chemotherapy or radiation to make space for the donor marrow and prevent rejection. However, the book notes that for some primary immunodeficiency disorders, where the patient has very little of their own marrow function to begin with, this pretreatment might sometimes be skipped or reduced. This can actually increase the chance of the donor marrow taking hold successfully and helps avoid some of the long-term side effects associated with the conditioning regimens. But if some non-functioning marrow still exists, pretreatment is typically necessary.
Okay. The book also touches on cancer in relation to the immune system, beyond just the immunodeficiency link.
Right. A tumor is described fundamentally as a situation where a cell loses its normal control over division and programmed death, apoptosis, usually due to accumulating mutations in specific genes that regulate these processes.
And the immune system normally fights cancer cells.
Yes, the immune system, particularly those killer T cells we discussed earlier, plays a role in recognizing and eliminating cancerous or precancer cells. This is sometimes called immunosurveillance. Cancer develops when these abnormal cells manage to evade or overcome this surveillance.
Are specific foods linked in the book to supporting the body's fight against cancer?
Yes, several are mentioned. Mushrooms get a specific nod, particularly varieties like shiitake, maitake, and reishi, which have immunomodulating properties. Onions, leeks, garlic, and other alliums are highlighted. Swiss chard makes the list. And tomatoes are mentioned with a specific note that they seem to have a synergistic anti-cancer effect when consumed together with broccoli.
Interesting synergy. The book also links certain environmental contaminants to hindering the immune system's ability to fight cancer.
Correct. PAHs, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, are mentioned specifically. These are pollutants found in things like cigarette smoke, charred food, asphalt, and heavy vehicle exhaust.
And how do they affect immunity in cancer?
The book states they can alter the immune response and actually increase apoptosis, or programmed cell death, specifically in lymphocytes, a key type of immune cell. By weakening this arm of the immune system, PAHs might make it harder for the body to prevent cancer cells from growing unchecked.
So practical tips to avoid significant PAH exposure.
Pretty straightforward things. Obviously, don't smoke and avoid secondhand smoke. Try to avoid spending prolonged time in areas with heavy traffic exhaust. Ensure garages attached to homes are well ventilated, and potentially consider using a good quality air purifier if you live near very busy roads or industrial areas.
There's even a brief mention of the traditional Chinese medicine perspective on cancer treatment. What's that view?
From that perspective, conventional treatments like chemotherapy and radiation, while potentially necessary to target the cancer, are often seen as harsh interventions that can worsen underlying imbalances in the body's energy, qi, and substances, blood yin-yang. They might cause what TCM calls stagnation or depletion.
So the focus is different.
Yes, the TCM approach often focuses on restoring balance and supporting the patient's overall constitution alongside conventional therapies, aiming to help them better tolerate the treatments, manage side effects, and recover more effectively.
Finally, rounding out the conditions, the book relates immunity to some common skin conditions, like acne. How is that linked?
Acne is linked to the immune system's role in maintaining a healthy balance of the normal bacteria that live on our skin, particularly Propionibacterium acnes,
Right, yeah.
P. acnes, and Staphylococcus epidermidis.
So if the immune system isn't working right.
Exactly. If the local immune function on the skin is disrupted or isn't regulating these bacteria properly, it can lead to inflammation and infections within the sebaceous glands, oil glands, resulting in increased acne severity. Conventional treatments like benzoyl peroxide, topical or oral antibiotics, and retinoids, which are related to vitamin A and help normalize the follicle cycle, are mentioned, along with a note about their potential for significant side effects ranging from skin dryness and irritation to, for systemic treatments, possible liver function changes, effects on triglycerides, and serious risks of birth defects with oral retinoids.
And contact dermatitis. How does immunity play into that itchy rash?
Contact dermatitis is essentially a skin reaction, a rash, often with irritation and itching that can be caused either by direct irritation from a substance, like a harsh chemical, or very commonly by an immune response to a specific substance.
An allergic reaction on the skin.
Right. Immune-mediated contact dermatitis involves the immune system developing sensitivity and making antibodies, or having T-cell reactions, to specific chemicals that touch the skin, things like poison ivy resin, nickel in jewelry, fragrances, or preservatives in cosmetics. This triggers the production of inflammatory cytokines and histamine release in the skin, causing the characteristic rash.
And it tends to be chronic.
Often, yes, because the reaction occurs whenever you're exposed to that specific triggering agent. So avoidance of the identified trigger becomes the primary strategy for management.
That's an incredibly comprehensive journey through how immunity or immune dysfunction impacts so many different aspects of our health. It's really complex. To wrap things up on a practical note, the book offers some really useful tips for getting your whole family, even kids and partners, on board with a healthier, more immunity-supporting lifestyle. It seems like being a role model is the absolute starting point.
It's fundamental, yeah. The book makes it clear you really can't force or bully someone into making lasting, healthy changes. You have to embody those changes yourself first. Be the role model.
How does that look practically?
Make healthy food readily available and the norm at home. Have clear, consistent family values around food and health, but keep it positive.
And teaching kids the why seems crucial, rather than just laying down rules they don't understand.
Absolutely. The book emphasizes that just telling kids, or anyone, to do things just because lacks heart and motivation. Explain why healthy living matters. Talk about having energy to play, feeling strong, not getting sick as often.
Involve them.
Definitely. Involve them in the process. Take them grocery shopping, point out how packaging uses cartoons or buzzwords to market unhealthy foods, read labels together, talk about advertising they see on TV or online. Help them become critical thinkers about food choices.
Making healthier eating fun is also highlighted as a key strategy, especially for kids.
Yeah, keeping things lighthearted and enjoyable helps learning and retention much more than intense, stressful approaches, which often just create resistance.
What are some fun ideas mentioned?
Simple things. Using cookie cutters to make sandwiches or fruit into fun shapes. Using an ice cream scoop for things like rice or mashed potatoes to make neat mounds. Arranging food on the plate to make faces or pictures. The book even mentions resources like a specific plate designed to encourage making food faces. Little things can make a difference.
The 2+1 rule for dinner sounds like a really smart, simple approach to normalizing vegetables.
A great, easy-to-implement rule. The idea is to aim for having 2 cooked vegetables and 1 raw vegetable available at dinner every single night.
What's the benefit?
It just anchors vegetables as a standard expected part of the meal, not an afterthought. It also creates natural opportunities to talk about different veggies, maybe try new ones. And vegetables included within a dish, like having spaghetti squash instead of pasta, count as 1 cooked vegetable.
And raw examples.
Easy things kids might like. Snap peas, sugar snap peas, kohlrabi sticks, jicama slices, cucumber rounds, carrot sticks, bell pepper strips. Things they can often eat with their hands.
Okay, and managing sweets with kids. Always a common challenge for parents. What's the advice?
The main advice is very direct, almost behavioral. If you don't bring it into the house, it can't be eaten easily at home.
Control the environment.
Exactly. Instead of keeping tempting treats like cookies, candy, or ice cream constantly in the pantry or freezer, consider making sweets an occasional out-of-the-house event. Go out for ice cream, bake cookies together for a special occasion.
And don't stress too much about what happens outside the home.
The book advises not to get crazy or overly anxious about parties or treats eaten at friends' houses. Focus on establishing good habits and understanding at home. The goal is that over time, your kids naturally start to connect what they eat, especially sugary foods, with how they actually feel energetic or sluggish, focused, or foggy.
And the real sweets point again.
Yes, if sweets are being eaten, try to make sure they are real sweets, made with recognizable ingredients, rather than highly processed items full of chemicals, artificial colors, and Frankensweets, as the book calls them. And again, the more refined the sugar, generally the worse it's considered for overall health.
And finally, what about getting a partner on board with making healthier lifestyle changes? That can be tricky too.
Similar principles apply, really. First and foremost, be a strong leader and positive role model yourself. Don't nag or criticize. Instead, articulate a compelling why for making healthier choices together. Focus on shared goals, like having more energy for activities, better long-term health, setting good example for kids.
Make it a team effort.
Ideally, yes, frame it positively.
Yeah.
And if they do decide to make changes, be enthusiastic and supportive during their transition, which might be challenging for them. Celebrate small successes together.
Wow, okay. That was quite the exploration into boosting immunity. We've really covered a lot of ground.
We really have.
From the incredible microscopic work of immune cells and the vital importance of our gut bacteria allies, all the way to the powerful support offered by specific nutrient-dense foods, supplements, and herbs.
And the lifestyle factors, too.
Absolutely. We deeply explored how fundamental things like getting enough sleep, getting some sunshine, staying hydrated, and managing stress profoundly impact your immune system's ability to function well.
They're truly foundational.
Plus, we touched on how immune system issues connect to so many different conditions. Allergies, leaky gut, autoimmune disorders, even cancer, and wrapped up with those practical strategies for making healthy living a family priority.
It really paints a picture of how interconnected everything is.
It's abundantly clear that strengthening your immune system isn't just one thing, is it? It's a deeply interconnected, multifaceted endeavor involving almost every aspect of your daily life.
It truly is. And understanding these connections, from the cellular level right up to what's on your dinner plate and how you manage your day, it provides such a comprehensive perspective on how to support your health.
So here's a thought to leave you with, maybe something to mull over as you go about your day. Given all these intricate connections we've just uncovered between diet, lifestyle, environment, and immune function, what single small change might make the biggest, most practical difference for you right now in supporting your body's natural defenses?